Chris, did you ever play past the junior varsity level of basketball?
Well, I got asked to leave the varsity team. So, yes, I did play varsity basketball, but I got asked to leave.
And why did you get asked to leave?
Creative differences with the coach.
And what kind of creative differences?
He thought that I was probably a little bit better at football, and they were like, we don't want to risk you getting hurt and taking your time, so we need to get you out to run track and play football. So they said it's probably the best thing for you.
DC ain't even make JVT. I love it.
I 100% did, and I was asked to leave. And, there's a lot of people out there that know why and that can stay. It's not something we need to dig up.
It was fighting was involved, if I'm not mistaken, correct? You beat somebody. Basically, you bullied somebody.
I was a lover, not a fighter, and I have the daughter to prove it, So
Welcome to Big B Daily. No frauds allowed.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Big B Daily. This is your man, Big B. What is happening? We are live on TikTok. What's going on, TikTok? We are live on YouTube. Man, do we got an action-packed show for you guys today. Appreciate everybody being here, man. It is wild. And Willie, sports world, college basketball is going absolutely bananas right now. It's going bananas. And we're going to cover all of it. Men and women. South Carolina finishes off an undefeated season in pretty good fashion yesterday, beating Iowa. Dawn Staley gets her third title. Caitlin Clark, what's her legacy? What really is her legacy? So let's find out about that. And then late last night, Lord have mercy, John Calipari decides he wants to take the Arkansas job. He's done with Kentucky. He's fed up with the fans. Man, let's get into all of this. Before we do, as always, man, I appreciate everybody being here. Look, live on TikTok, live on YouTube. Thank you guys. TikTok, keep tapping the screen. Like we mentioned, at least 5,000 likes and at least 30 new follows. So if you're in here and you're not following, give us a follow. We appreciate it. Thank you guys. Same thing. Click on the link in my bio and come subscribe over to YouTube. We appreciate all of that. YouTube, thank you guys for being here. If you guys like what we are doing with the show, people, if you guys appreciate what we're doing and like what we're doing and you want to support the show, there's several different ways, man. Obviously, you can always like, follow, share, subscribe, TikTok. There's a tip jar. You can send gifts. You can like. You can share the live, which I would appreciate if you guys shared the live. Continue to follow. All of that good stuff. Thank you, guys. Same thing over on YouTube. Both of you on TikTok and YouTube, you can control the conversation. Sending over a super chat on YouTube that goes immediately up. And we put your question right to the top and your statement. Otherwise, let's get going, people. Let's get going. So first off, South Carolina wins the national championship yesterday. They were the better team. They were better than Iowa. Doesn't mean that Iowa was a bad basketball team, but South Carolina was better. It was proven that they were better. Iowa came out and punched them directly in the mouth. I mean, Caitlin Clark came out on fire. Like, you know what? I got a point to prove. I'm going out here and I'm going to win this game. I'm going to win this game. I'm not going to end my college career without a title. I'm going to win. 18 points in the first quarter. Was absolutely on fire. Next thing you know, South Carolina takes the punch. They get up off the mat. They punch back. And at halftime, they're up. I mean, Iowa led 20-9 at one point. South Carolina had to call a timeout. It looked like it could get ugly because it didn't look like Caitlin Clark was going to miss a shot. She was unbelievable that first quarter. Just unbelievable. But she scored 12 points the rest of the way. They slowed her way down from her initial momentum. And From then on, South Carolina just said, you know what, we're going to take control of this thing. And they did. It seemed like South Carolina got every offensive rebound. They would shoot, miss, and they would get an offensive rebound. They absolutely owned the glass. And if you're going to allow South Carolina to do that, it is what it is. Somebody in the comments saying, Dawn Staley, the best in the business right now. Yeah, queen of adjustments. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the one thing that Dawn Staley, I don't think, gets enough credit for. She gets the talent, but she also coaches the talent, and she tells the girls, or the women, I'm sorry, I apologize, the women, she says, we're not going to have somebody in here scoring 25, 30 points a game. That's not what we do at South Carolina. You're not going to play every second of every minute. We're going to play 9, 10 people. We're all going to work together as a team. We're going to play outstanding defense. We're going to rebound. We're going to play hard. And she makes adjustments. If the initial game plan doesn't work, she figures out a way to get better, to do something better. That is the definition of a great coach. Dawn Staley is definitely that. And boom, another national title. We talked last week about what this does to her legacy. I don't think if she lost, it would hurt her legacy, but winning throws her into an upper echelon. Yeah, absolutely. Upper echelon. So that's kind of what Dawn Staley is in right now. 3 national championships. They're Gino Auriemma, Pat Summitt, and Kim Mulkey. Gino has 11. Pat Summitt has 8. God rest her soul. Kim Mulkey has 4. And then Tara Vanderveer and Dawn Staley both have 3. I mean, if you're in that company, you're elite. You are elite. And Dawn Staley definitely is elite. So, having said that, let's talk about Caitlin Clark and her legacy. You know, there's a lot of things that we can get into, but let's move on. Does this hurt Caitlin Clark's legacy? If her not winning a national championship, not being able to get that on her resume, you can't just say that she's the GOAT. I'm sorry, people. Does that mean she's not great? No, it doesn't mean that. Does that not mean that she's in the conversation? No, it doesn't mean that she's not in the conversation. Clearly, she's in the conversation. However, you got to be able to finish something off. Look, I get what people are going to say, that winning is a team sport and you can't put a team sport, winning attached to say, yes, you can. Yes, you can. I've said it a million times and I'll continue to say it. Nobody ever says that Dan Marino is the best quarterback of all time. But anybody that saw Dan Marino play and understands anything about football knows when it comes to his arm strength, his release, his accuracy, you can't name 3 people better than Dan Marino. You just can't. You cannot. And yet, nobody, and I mean outside of Dolphins fans, nobody says that Dan Marino is the best quarterback ever. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. And that's the difference. That's the difference, is that nobody talks about it, and because he didn't win a Super Bowl. I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. It's just, Tom Brady doesn't have a better arm than Dan Marino. Some interior decorator over on TikTok is saying Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers have better arms than Dan Marino. Clearly, you never watched Dan Marino. Otherwise, you would never let something like that come out of your mouth. You would never say that. And that's why. It's because he didn't win a title. So when you're splitting hairs between the best, winning has to matter. It has to matter. Because if it doesn't, then what are we doing? It has to matter. So Caitlin Clark, while great, and we could even say the greatest women's scorer of all time, absolutely, not the GOAT. And that's okay. And to be quite honest with you, I'm done trying to have that conversation. I'm done with GOAT talk. That's why I don't get into it when we're talking about Michael Jordan and LeBron. I don't get into any of that because people want to change the landscape and they want to move this and say that and blah, 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 yeah. Oh, my God. It gets on my absolute last nerve. There are so many other things to talk about to have absolutely just regular conversations, real conversations, than to constantly bring that up. Nobody's ever going to agree. That's the first thing. Nobody's ever going to agree. They're going to change and move the goalpost based on what narrative that you want. So then that's what you talk about. And then you flip the script and manipulate a conversation. And I just don't have time for that. There's plenty of other things that we can talk about in sports that are true, that we can actually prove. Or we can have fun going after one another about whose team is better. But constant GOAT conversation, oh my God. Yes, every GOAT conversation is led by bias, 1,000%. That's why you all don't hear me talking about that. People try to bait me. Do you think LeBron's the GOAT? You think MJ's the GOAT? Well, what if I thought Kareem was the GOAT? Then what would you say? And then, well, Kareem wasn't that good. And anybody that says stupid stuff like that, Kareem wasn't that good, that's when I just bow out of the conversation. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm done. I'm done. So Caitlin Clark is in the conversation. She's great. She had a great career. I think her college legacy, I don't think it's stained at all. I don't think anything has happened to her legacy. So I don't think anything at all. I think that she went to Iowa. I don't even know if you would say she put Iowa basketball on the map. I think it's bigger than that. I think she put women's college basketball on the map, and people wanted to pay attention to see whether she could break this record, if she was as good as everybody thought, and people tuned in to see if she would lose. People were rooting against her. That's the difference. People were rooting against her. We know it. I know it. Everybody knows that. So my man K-Ned says legacy is she brought an entirely different market to women's college basketball, restricted to Stores, Carolinas, Tennessee, and Mulkey. Yeah, I can agree with that. I can agree with that. She got the whole country galvanized. Whether you liked her, you didn't like her, you watched. And that is something to be said. Whether you like her or you didn't, you watched. And the people that liked her thought she was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Thought she was the greatest thing since sliced bread. The people that didn't like her thought, hey, she's playing on this team that doesn't have a whole lot of other teams, so she shoots the ball 25 times a game. Okay. Would she do the same thing if she was on a stacked team? The answer to that is no, she wouldn't. But that doesn't mean she wouldn't be just as good. People kill me with that. You act like because you play with other good players and you don't have to do as much, that somehow that means you're not as good. It doesn't mean you're not as good. It doesn't mean that. It just means that you don't have to do as much. But that doesn't mean you're not any good or you're not as good as somebody who doesn't play with a team that's not loaded. That would be my thing. So, but I like the conversation around it. I like Caitlin Clark. I like what she's doing. I think she's going to be good in the WNBA. I think she can be great in the WNBA. She's got to get some more strength. And because that's the thing about WNBA. Now, look, here's the thing. Do I watch WNBA basketball? The answer to that is no. I do not. Will I tune in a little bit more to see how she's doing? Yeah, I will. But the one thing I know about WNBA basketball, those women are strong and those women are athletic. Those women can play basketball. So she's going to have to get stronger. But she's 22. Who said she's peaked? That's my thing. Is she peaked? I don't think she's peaked. I don't think what she's doing means, oh, she's 22. That's the best she's ever going to be. I don't think that means that at all. And as long as we continue to understand that, she's going to continue to get better, let's keep going down that road. Let's keep going down that road. Hope Clark and Angel stay. Not a big fan of WNBA. Clark and Angel Reese are not staying. They've already said it. So I'm going to watch. I'm going to try to watch this year. I'm going to be that person that says, you know what? Let me watch. They keep asking for more people to just give them a chance. I'm going to give them a chance. I have never been willing to give them a chance. I'm going to give the WNBA a chance. And I would suggest everybody do the same. Give it a chance and just see. I mean, again, I'm no WNBA fan. I'm far from it. But let's just give it a chance and see what can happen. You know, NBA is going to be over. The dog days of baseball, which I can't get into summer regular season baseball, especially since my Mets. Hey, a funny thing happened. My Mets might be resurrected from the dead. We were out of it, and we just might be. Now, we got a series coming up starting today with Atlanta, a 4-game series. If that goes south, then we're continued to be out of it. But we might just be resurrected from the dead. Maybe I can watch baseball after all a little bit. I mean, I was only going to be able to watch till the middle of May anyway, and I was done last week. We were out of it. So hopefully we can do something. We'll see. We will see. Bill Myers already watches WNBA. Good for you, man. I encourage everybody, give it a chance. Let's just try to give it a chance. I think if we try to compare it to the NBA, you're going to be disappointed. But like people that watch women's college basketball, and don't say nobody's watching. I mean, the game yesterday, we don't have the numbers yet, but I guarantee you it's going to be the highest rated women's college basketball game in history. Hell, the game that they played against UConn was the highest rated sporting event minus football in the history of ESPN. Think about that for a second. A women's Final Four basketball game was the highest rated sporting event minus football in the history of ESPN. I mean, that should tell you something, man. That should tell you something. So I like, just give it an opportunity. Give it an opportunity and we'll see. And nobody compares women's college basketball to men. You know what I'm saying? We don't do that. We don't compare it to men. So why do we need to compare the WNBA to men? I don't think we should. Now, look, I don't want to act like I'm the poster child for advertising for WNBA basketball. I've been the first person to tell you I can't watch it. But I'm going to try to change and give it a chance. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. TikTok, you guys keep tapping the screen, man. We got to get to 5,000 likes. Share the live. Tap the screen. We need at least 30 follows. So if you're in here and you're not following, please give us a follow. Please give us a follow. And click on the link in my bio. Click on that link. Come on over to YouTube, man. Anybody that's on YouTube that came from TikTok will tell you that the live is better. They will tell you. So, and by football season, to be able for me to respond, you're going to have to be on YouTube. By the time football season rolls around, we're going to have pushed everything, all responses over to YouTube. So get in a habit of doing that now. Come on over to YouTube. We appreciate it, man. We appreciate it because when football season gets here, all responses, we'll still be live on TikTok, but there'll be no responses on TikTok. It will all be on YouTube. So we appreciate it. We appreciate it. Kenny, can't wait for NFL football season. Me neither, man. I can't wait for this draft, to be honest with you. I am hype. Look, my Steelers are in a position to try to do something. Everybody keeps it. They said the same thing about the Steelers last year. Oh, well, they're not going to be very good. They're going to be the worst team in the division. Well, they weren't. Well, it was only because Joe Burrow got hurt. Well, when the hell isn't Joe Burrow hurt? Number one. Number two, last time I checked, people get hurt in football. Number three, the Steelers played 3 below average quarterbacks last year. I don't want to hear about who wasn't playing, who wasn't doing what. Nobody in the National Football League was playing Mitchell Trubisky and Baby Hands Pickett at their quarterback last year. That didn't happen for any football team. The Steelers had it. They still won 10 games, and they still made the playoffs. I don't want to hear the rest. Houston looks good. Yeah, they do. But let's move on, man. Let's move on. So overnight, Coach John Calipari has decided that he wanted to move and is done with the Kentucky Wildcats and has said, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm done with this fan base. They don't appreciate me. They don't respect me. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. You guys want me out? I'm out. And he has decided that he is going to Arkansas to be their next head basketball coach. Now, at first glance, Arkansas, it's not Kentucky. No, it's not. It's Kentucky. Look, as much as I despise everything Kentucky, and I do, I can admit that Kentucky is the best college basketball program in America. It is. And I know, what about Duke? What about North Carolina and Kent? No, when it comes to everything that's involved, Kentucky is at the top of the heap. And do you know how hard that is to say as a Louisville fan? Do you know how hard that it comes for me to be able to say something like that? But it's the truth. And y'all know me. I'm always going to be honest and tell the truth. It's the truth. So they are the top of the heap when it comes to college basketball. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that they're at the top of the heap when it comes to money for a program. Because Arkansas just so happens to have Walmart money. I mean, hell, the arena is Bud Walton Arena. Now, that's not Sam Walton, but that was his brother. He helped start it. Still billionaire family. So they have more money than Kentucky could ever dream of. That they do have. And so Calipari's like, look, first of all, I don't think he was going to be able to change the way that he did things at Kentucky. And what I mean by that is his philosophy on one and dones at Kentucky, I don't think he was going to be able to get out of that trend while he was at Kentucky. I think if he wants to start winning national championships, he's got to get out of that trend. And he wasn't going to be able to do that at Kentucky. They weren't going to allow him to do that. Because if he didn't have the top 1 or 2 or 3 recruiting classes every single year, Kentucky fans were going to bitch about that. And then they're not winning national championships, so you know that they're bitching about that. And they should, by the way. They should. He's got to be better. But you can't have a bunch of freshmen on your team and expect to win a national championship. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. You got to start developing guys. That's right. Eric on TikTok, they weren't going to be patient enough. Exactly. They weren't going to allow him to have the 18th best recruiting class, develop guys as they come along, have guys that would be in the program 3 and 4 years. Kentucky fans didn't want to hear that. And part of that is Calipari's fault because he said, okay, it's a one and done type of thing. All we're going to do is get a bunch of one and done guys, and that's it. Can't win that way. Can't win with a bunch of freshman point guards making all the decisions. You look at the last several national champions. They don't have just a bunch of freshmen running out there. Hell, look at the national championship game this year. Now, Purdue's point guard's a sophomore, but he's a sophomore. And he started all year last year, went through all the heartache. And now he's a sophomore. I'm not saying he's a veteran by any means, but he's played enough basketball to have that kind of experience. Look at UConn. Those guys are seniors. Juniors and seniors out there making the decisions. You just can't win with one-and-done guys like that. You can't win with 5 of them. You're not going to win. And he realized that. He had to change. Kentucky fans were not going to allow him to change the way that he needed to change. And he said, you know what? A way that I can change, I can go to somewhere else. And Arkansas is not a bad program. They had a down year this year, but Arkansas's got a history. Arkansas is a good program. I mean, the year before they were in Sweet 16, Elite Eights. Arkansas, I mean, they got a program there. They've got money. They've got history. They got a crazy fan base, but not crazy like Kentucky. I think Calipari made a great move. I think he's going to succeed. It'll be interesting to see, but I think he succeeds at that level. Let's take a look here. Yeah, I just, Calipari leaving, I think is, whew. My man Paul, UK fans for the last 2 years has criticized his unwillingness to embrace the transfer portal over the one-and-dones. You're right. But wasn't going to change. He was trying to change. It's not the transfer portal. Kentucky were getting transfers. They were getting transfers. But Cal believed that the one-and-done players were better. So he believed that it was better. So we'll see. We will see. I just think that Calipari, I don't know. I think he was done with Kentucky, and Kentucky was done with him. Sometimes you're just done with each other. So sometimes you're just done with each other, and it's better to move on. Look, his problem was the fans were tired. First of all, the fans were tired of him. Look, if you can't win national championships, it's fine to continue to put NBA guys, guys in the NBA every year. That's fine. But at some point, you got to win. Okay? Yes, I want to be a program that puts guys in the NBA because what does it do? It helps recruiting. You're going to get better players. That's all fine and dandy. But at some point, you got to win with those players. And he hadn't done that. He won one time in 2012, which, look, one time is not an easy feat by any means. But he won one time, and that was it. And Kentucky fans are like, no, we need some titles here. We need some titles. We need some tournament success. Enough with all we do is just pump out one-and-done players. How does that, first of all, how many of those guys do you think are just turning around and giving money? They haven't even been at Kentucky long enough to be invested. Hell, half the guys at Kentucky that you hear them talking about, big men, Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns, Bam Adebayo, they contributed their success in the NBA to Kenny Damn Payne because he was an assistant there. And Kenny Payne can't coach a lick as far as a head coach, but he helped those guys develop. So how do you think those guys turn around and say, oh, well, we're going to support the Kentucky program with money and all that? Hell, you saw those guys when they came back into town. They were going to Louisville to play their damn pickup games because they loved Kenny Payne. Now, how do you think that made Kentucky fans feel? They're done with it. They want to win. They want to win. And as somebody who is opposed to Kentucky, who roots against everything Kentucky. I know the ins and outs of the program. I've known them forever. I've been a Louisville fan my whole life. You know your rivals. You know your rivals. And the bottom line is Kentucky fans are fed up. I don't think the administration was fed up because all the administration cares about is money. I mean, we know that. Yeah, we want to win, but as long as the arena is still full, we're still getting all this money into the program. That's what we want, which, by the way, is part of a head coach's job. So they were doing that. Tournament success. Yeah, we want more tournament success. We want to win, but the arena's full. You know, the arena's full. People are coming in and buying all this merchandise. So as long as they're doing that, man, it is what it is. It is what it is. My man, Matt Hasselbring, he knows about UK. The UK fan base wants national championships. Don't care about how many NBA players they have. Yes, 1,000%. They'll take the NBA players, but the one thing I know about Kentucky fans right now, if they never had another NBA player walk through that door, and that could guarantee them the next 10 national championships over the next 25 years, they would do it. They would do it. Yes, it's nice to have NBA players, but they don't care about that. They want to win. And quiet as it's kept, that Calipari got away from that. He got away from that and then started saying that in the public. Hey, my first job is to make sure these young men have secure futures. Right or wrong, the fans said, no, we want them to be successful, but we want to win more than we want them to be successful. That sounds harsh, but every fan base is like that. So I don't want to just make it sound like I'm trying to bash on Kentucky fans. No. Every fan base says, yeah, we want the guys to be, our gals to be successful, but we want to win more than anything. Fan is short for fanatic. I'm the same way. I root for Louisville because I've loved them my whole life. I played at Kansas State. I love them. I want both of them to win. But I want them to win more than anything. That's it. I get so mad at Kansas State fans because they take the approach of being the woe is me. We can't do this. We're just the little engine that could fan base, and it doesn't have to be that way. They don't have to be that way. It drives me insane when I see that. I'm like, you're a Power 5 school. Stop. Kentucky fans are the exact opposite of that. We know we're Kentucky. We want to win. That's it. Fan, short for fanatic. I love it. Now let's get into the weeds a little bit with this. Let's get in the weeds with this. See, here, hold on. My man over on YouTube, my man Paul, which I love Paul, man. He's been a follower since day one. We love my man Paul. He says, I'll take that deal right now. Exactly. That's coming right from the mouth of a Kentucky fan. A diehard Kentucky fan. If not one NBA player walked through that door for the next 25 years, but you could guarantee that they would win 10 titles over that 25 years, that every Kentucky fan that's ever walked the face of this earth would take it. Boom. My man K-Ned, he comes on the Insider, Big 12 Insiders, the K-State Insiders. We love him. He asks a ton of questions. I love this guy. Preach. Because he knows what I talk about with K-State fans. And he's a K-State guy. I just get so frustrated. I'm like, stop being woe is me. Stop it. You don't have to be that. Oh, by the way, if you continue being the woe is me fan base, you're never going to be considered one of the top places in America. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I know how it won't happen is if you continue to be, well, we can't get this guy. I would only rather have 3-star players. I don't want the best guys. We just want all guys. I'm like, come on, man. I get it that we're not going to get the best players all the time. But you're telling me that you can't get 4 stars from time to time? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And you should want to have those. You should want to have them. But it is what it is. It is what it is. There it is right there. Talk trash to other fan bases about how many NBA players they have. Well, Kentucky fans have started doing that over the last 10 years because that's all they got. That's all they got. So, yeah, Chuck, the end goal is a championship. I mean, you can talk about, well, we got 25 guys in the NBA. Okay. How many titles you win? 1. Oh, you know what? So did we. So, what? Now what? Shouldn't you, matter of fact, shouldn't you have more titles? You got all these guys in the NBA. Shouldn't you have more titles than 1? Another thing that gets left out is Coach Cal, his coaching, his actual X's and O's coaching. I think maybe he's going to have to start getting into the weeds and getting back to that because, you know, it's one thing when you have all the best players out there and you can't get it done. He's going to have to start doing some coaching. Arkansas might be in for a rude awakening. Do we know that Cal can really coach? I mean, it's a question. It's a question. Is he really that good of a coach? I don't know. I don't know. K-Ned, you are 1,000% right. You are 1,000% right talking about Kansas State. I call it the Kent State syndrome. You are 1,000% right. None of these coaches that you mentioned, Tex Winter, Bill Snyder, Jack Gardner, none of them believed like that. I'll even go a step further. I don't think Lon Kruger didn't believe like that. They didn't believe. They thought we can get the best players and be the best that we can be. They didn't have that mindset of, well, we're Kansas State. We'll just take whatever we can get. No. So, no. Gets on my nerves. So let's flip the script here, people. Let's flip the script. Who does Kentucky go and get? Who do they go and get? Now, the first name that popped in my head, and I'll be honest, was Rick Pitino. I thought, hey, this is a perfect opportunity for Rick Pitino to get back because you know he doesn't want to be at St. John's. We all know that. He's only at St. John's because it was a Power 6 conference school, and they offered him the job. He doesn't want to be at St. John's. They don't have the resources, any of the stuff that he wants and probably needs to win. I don't think Jay Wright's coming out of retirement. I think Jay Wright had it perfect at Villanova. Jay Wright got out of coaching because he didn't like the landscape of where college athletic was. So I think Jay Wright is done. Not to mention, how old is Jay Wright? Let me look that up. How old is Jay Wright? 62. Well, he's still young enough. So, and it's not a rebuild job at Kentucky either. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he's coming into a job and he's got to rebuild. Bill Self is never leaving Kansas. You got to stop. So, somebody on TikTok said Bill Self. No, not happening. Not happening. My man Pat Cockrell, he said Bill Self. And since Bill Self is not leaving, Pat. Come on. So, that was the first thought. Was Rick Pitino. Jay Wright, actually, now that I think about it, it could make sense because it's not a rebuild. But Jay Wright, like I said, he got out for different reasons. I think he may have been burnt out, but he didn't like the landscape of college basketball, so he left. But it could make some sense. So they talked about Billy Donovan. They went after Billy Donovan before, and he said no. But he's in a different place now, different mindset. Would he take the job? Now, he's going to ask Pitino about it. And he was an assistant at Kentucky, so he understands, but he's in the MVA. He's 58. He's 58, people. Dan Hurley is never going to leave. Yes, they've been saying Dan Hurley's name on Twitter. Why would you leave? You're the two-time defending, because I think they're going to beat Purdue. You've been to back-to-back finals games. Even if they lose, you've been to back-to-back finals games. You've won a title. I get paid a bunch. I can get any kid that I want. I'm in a great conference because the Big East is a great conference. My fan base loves me. They're not going to second guess every decision that I make, which at Kentucky, you know that's going to happen. Why would you leave that to go into the fire pit of Kentucky? He ain't doing that. So no. No. And no, they're not. Billy Donovan, they're not in contention for the playoffs anymore. So not anymore. At least I don't think. Let me look at the standings because I don't think that they can make it anymore. Nope, I'm wrong. They're number 9. So they're in the playoffs, actually. Yeah, they're in the playoffs. Well, at least they'll be in the play-in game. So we'll see. Billy Donovan, I don't think is realistic. Now, the next is, he said, call Coach K. I've heard Nate Oates. Nate Oates got it going at Alabama. Made a Final Four for the first time in history. They've had very good tournament success lately. So, hold on. Somebody said, why wouldn't Self leave Kansas for Kentucky? Well, what would he get at Kentucky that he doesn't have at Kansas? Money? He's got all the money. He's got a lifetime contract. They're one of the best schools in the history of the NCAA. They can get anybody that he wants. So why would you leave Kansas to go to Kentucky? So no, they can't get Bill Self. Bill Self, you would never leave Kansas. And again, they're not questioning every move that he makes. Bill Self jumped from Illinois to Kansas. Come on now. Stop. It is not the same thing. It's not even remotely the same thing. So, not even remotely the same thing. But I get where your thoughts going. I get where your head's at. But Bill Self's not leaving Kansas to go to Kentucky. That's a lateral move. And not only is it a lateral move, it's even a step down when you think of all the extra pressures that you're going to have to put yourself under. Because, again, you're going to have your detractors at Kansas because it's that kind of program. You're not going to get half the fan base questioning every move that you make like they do at Kentucky. He's not doing that. So that's out. Scott Drew's not going to leave. I heard that name earlier. Scott Drew's got it going in Baylor. Now, here's another thing. Scott Drew took over a Baylor program. Look, to me, Scott Drew resurrected a program that I don't think anybody in the history of college athletics, maybe other than Bill Snyder, but even then wasn't as bad as what Baylor was. And what I mean by that is the previous head coach at Baylor covered up a freaking murder where his guy killed another kid on the basketball team, and he covered it up. Scott Drew had to come in and clean that up. Hell, there was a year they couldn't even play non-conference games, for crying out loud. But Scott Drew loves it in Waco. He's a really religious guy. He's not going to go into the fire pit of Kentucky. He's not going to do that. He's a really religious guy. He's at a religious school. He has everything that he wants at Baylor. They just built him a brand new arena that they said was never going to happen. It happened. Scott Drew's not going to be the guy. So, Nate Oates, Rick Pitino, I'll tell you this. It's going to be somebody that we don't think about. That's who's going to get it's going to be a big name, but it's going to end up being somebody that we don't know, that we're not talking about right now. That's who's going to end up being the head coach. That's going to end up being the head coach. Is somebody that's a really big name that we're just not talking about. It may come from the NBA because I think it's going to take somebody with that kind of personality to take the job, but they're going to need some college coaching chops. But I think that's who's going to do it. I mean, I can be wrong because obviously we don't know, but just think about the last coaches that have coached there. They had Rick Pitino, and then they hired Tubby Smith. Tubby Smith was an assistant there, went to Georgia and was successful, comes back, boom. And they were good, and then they ran Tubby out of there. I mean, Tubby was winning 24-plus games a year. That wasn't good enough. Decided to get Billy Gillespie, which could have been the disaster of disasters. So, Seth with the super chat coming in hot. Will Wade, Arkansas fans wanted him. I don't know, Seth. I don't think Kentucky fans would welcome Will Wade in. I don't think they would. First of all, he's not a big enough name. Will Wade lives in the weeds. And what I mean by that, he will cheat, but what he did is legal now. So I just don't think Kentucky fans are going to allow for that. I don't think they're going to say and take a guy that came from Morehead State. I think that's where Will Wade is coaching right now. I could be wrong. So I just don't think that that's what he's going to do. I don't think that's what, because Arkansas didn't. Here's the thing. Oh, he's at McNeese State. Sorry. McNeese State. I apologize. Not Morehead. McNeese. Here's the thing about Will Wade. Nobody has hired him. Nobody's hired him. Like, they keep bringing his name, keeps getting brought up for all these jobs. Louisville job. Arkansas job. All these jobs, people keep bringing his name up. He doesn't get hired. I'm guessing it's because when people actually do a deep dive, the cheating that he was doing goes even deeper than that. And people are like, absolutely not. We can't do it. We can't do it. So that's the thing. But yeah, you look at the coaches, then they brought in Calipari, and they loved him for a while. But it's just like any job. They'll love you till they hate you. And finally, they just got to the point to where, hey, man, where are the titles? Where are the titles? I need some titles here. Stop with the nonsense. I need titles. Don't tell me about all these lives that you're changing. Because the one thing I will say this, you go to the University of Kentucky to play basketball, your life got changed just by that. That's number one. Now, being able to help kids and put them into the NBA and change their lives and their families' lives forever, I mean, that kind of goes without saying. Yes, that's a great thing. And you want to have that be part of your program. But Kentucky fans want to win, man. And just like any fan, but again, I don't want to just bash on Kentucky fans. Fans want to win. And that's fine that you're doing all this, but where are the wins, man? Where are my titles? Where are my titles? Which, again, brings into question, is Cal really that good of a coach? So, Chuck Miller said Doc Rivers. Chuck, I love you. I love you. If Kentucky hired Doc Rivers, that would be one of the greatest days of my life. I've had several graduations. I've won state titles. I got married. It would go right to the top of the list. Because I know that Kentucky is going to suck if Doc Rivers was their head coach. Lord have mercy. Woo! No, I know I'm not bashing you, Paul. I know I'm not bashing Kentucky fans. I'm just saying all fan bases want to win. And it sounds bad when you say fans want to win more than helping kids improve their lives. It sounds bad. It may even be bad. But it just sounds bad. Nobody's saying they don't want to help kids, but they want to win right along with it. Maybe that's the word phrasing I should use. Fans want to win right along with the helping. Does that make sense? They want to win. Ooh, Kelvin Sampson. Now that's a spicy one. Kelvin Sampson's a spicy one. And damn right he would jump. Give him the resources? Bruce Pearl. Spicy. Spicy. I like TikTok's thinking. TikTok's thinking. They're thinking. Kelvin Sampson would be. Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. While Kelvin Sampson is an outstanding coach, if we're really being honest, does Kelvin Sampson have the recruiting chops to continue at Kentucky? I think he would, because then he would be the head coach at Kentucky and he can go into homes. So he can go into homes and bring kids in. And he's a coach. But I don't know. I'm just telling you, don't take your eyes off of old Ricky P. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Don't take your eyes off Rick Pitino. I'm telling you, watch his flight movements. Watch his movements. It can get tricky. Oh, and we know Ricky P is tricky. So it'll be interesting, man. It'll be interesting. It's going to be, I just think it's just going to be somebody that we don't know, that we're not thinking about. You know, smart ADs have contingency plans. And you can't tell me that after the season, I mean, when has Coach Cal had to have a conversation with the AD on whether he wanted to stay or not? Why would he have to do that? He wouldn't. But now he's having a conversation. Coach Cal is probably like, Calipari's like, hey, man, I'm done with this place. Let me just find a place that's great, and I'm going to leave. And the AD is probably thinking the same thing. Hey, man, he's going to leave. As soon as if somebody that's good enough offers him a job, he's going to take it. We need a contingency plan. It's Seth, not Roy Williams, man. Roy Williams is done. And look, you got to stop thinking that somebody from a Duke, a Kansas, a North Carolina, they're not going to Kentucky. They're not going to Kentucky. Not to mention they've already made their names. They're not doing that. The thing that's Rick Pitino is that Rick Pitino's moved around so much, his legacy at places isn't cement. Like, he was at Kentucky, but he wasn't at Kentucky 10 years. He was at Louisville longer than he was at Kentucky. You know? So, but I think he'd go back to Kentucky in a heartbeat. Kelvin Sampson, it can make some sense. They lost some guys. Kelvin Sampson's a little older, but he would listen. He would listen. Let me see something. He would absolutely listen. But I don't know. Yeah, no. Kelvin Sampson's 68. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. I'm not trying to say that 68 is old, but in the coaching world, starting a new job, I mean, he ain't going to coach another decade. So I think Kelvin Sampson, plus I think Kelvin Sampson is pretty comfortable where he is. And look, I think Houston is in the final game tonight if their point guard doesn't sprain his ankle. I think they're in the final game. That's how good Houston was this year. So, no, we covered it, Ryan. Bill Self's never going to leave Kansas. That doesn't make any sense. Rick Pitino's 71, but Rick Pitino doesn't have any chops. Again, they would take him back, and Rick Pitino would groom somebody to be the next coach right behind him. So, Kelvin Sampson has, I guess he doesn't really have a legacy anywhere else. But you could see Pitino coaching another 8 years. I think you could. I think you could. Things change, don't get me wrong. But I think you could see him coaching another 8 years. And he would jump at the chance if Kentucky wanted to hire him. He would jump at it. Mark Jackson, while nobody's going to hire Mark Jackson. I don't know why. First of all, I think Mark Jackson's an NBA coach, but nobody's going to hire Mark Jackson. I don't have no clue what the reasoning behind it all. I got a little bit of a clue, but it's a different conversation for a different day. So, man, let's move on. We are into all of this. Could you see them hiring a former player to coach? Like who? They're not going to hire like Mark Pope. Like who's a former player that is now a coach that Kentucky would consider hiring? So I don't know. Rondo's not a coach. So why are you all talking about Bronny? We're not talking about Bronny, TikTok. Come on, man. Stay up. The coach from, they said the coach from Bishop Sycamore. Stop it. Stop it. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited. I shouldn't say excited. I'm interested to see what Kentucky's going to do. I'm real interested to see what's going to happen there. So we'll see. We will see. What do y'all think, man? Who wins tonight? Purdue, UConn. I think the game gets away from Purdue, actually. We saw Purdue guards struggle on Saturday. We saw them struggle. They just did. They struggled. And NC State's guards aren't near what UConn's guards are. I think the game gets away from them. I do. I think the game gets away from them. So we'll see what happens. That's why I didn't really talk about a whole lot of that today. We'll talk about it tomorrow, but I'm going to watch. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to watch, and I think everybody should watch. UConn minus 6.5. I am banging that all day long. No diddy. Pause. Yeah. Minus 6.5. I'm all over it. All over it. And everybody else should be too. If that's your thing. Yeah. It's silly. So that's right. UConn. That's a great point, K-Ned. UConn has a match for Edie. Purdue has nothing for the rest of UConn. Boom. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I'm not even saying that Edie won't have a good, or Edie. I keep saying Edie. I'm not saying that Edie won't have a good game, because I think he will. I don't think he's going to have 30 points. But maybe he gets loose, and he does. He gets guys in foul trouble. If he gets that same whistle that he got against Tennessee, Lord have mercy. But even then, UConn's got guys they can throw at him. They've got bodies. They got big bodies they can throw at him. So they have a counter, and they're going to make him work on the offensive end or on the defensive end. But after that, the guard play and the wing play is going to be so superior for UConn, and the way they were going to try to get up and down the court, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. So, Caitlin Clark had 30. Okay. And they lost. And it was the problem with Caitlin Clark's 30 points is that in the first quarter, I think she was like 5 of 6. She had 18 points. The rest of the game, she went 5 for 20. Ugh. I mean, you're not winning like that, man. You're not winning like that. So she did her thing in the first quarter, but after that, she scored 12 points. 12 points in 3 quarters is not good, regardless of what anybody else wants to tell you. Now, you can't take away those 18 that she scored in the first quarter. You can't do that. But the problem with that is after the first quarter, they were only up 7 points. They should have been up 14. They were up 7. She scores 18 points, is on fire. They put the clamps on her. She goes 5 for 20. At halftime, I knew the game was over because I'm like, Iowa should be ahead, and they're down 3. I'm like, you get that kind of production from your superstar in the first quarter. The second quarter, you get outscored by that much, and South Carolina hasn't even played well, and they're up 3. Game's over, and it was. So, well, I appreciate everybody being here today, man. We're going to shut this one down. Thank you guys for showing up. We appreciate it. Again, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time. We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for being here, man. Again, as always, if you like what we're doing and you want to support the show, you know how. Several different ways. On YouTube, we got super chats. Any way to control the conversation. You always get your statement or your question put right up on the screen. We appreciate it. Same thing on TikTok. Tips, gifts, likes, follows, shares, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate it all. We will be back tomorrow, people. National championship game tonight. I think UConn in a walk, 10 plus. I think they win by 10 plus points, man. 10 plus points. They're just that much better than everybody else, especially Purdue. We'll see. You guys have a good one. Aloha.